Other questions?
I read the sample you provided on the Moodle, and I found most of the two of them divided the essay into three parts. The first part is about theorizing the concepts. The second is about analyzing text, and the third is about applying the theory into the to analyze. Because I didn't see the clear boundary between the second part and the third part.
Yeah. Okay, I can clarify that. Yeah. So and I think the reason why you didn't see it so clearly is because a good essay doesn't just describe in that short second part what the response to the problem is. It says, okay, this is a text by that parliament or by that scholar, which basically says that what should happen to this problem is A, B, C, D, E, and G, and end of section. A good second section is one that it doesn't analyze through theory that proposed solution, but it tells me something about what lies beneath it. So what are the kind of assumptions? What are the kind of, ideologies? What are the kind of, what seem to be the important factors guiding that kind of policy? Or what is that policy, let's say response, because it doesn't have to be policy. Is that response part of a debate? What's the kind of context? So I want you to show me that you understand what lies beneath and beyond that text that you're choosing to work with. And in doing that, of course, you're showing me some analytical capacity. You're not just, copying and pasting passages from that policy. Do you see what I mean? But you don't have, for that short section, you don't have to make references to Bourdieu or to... It's already what it does. I think it's useful to think of that second part as a bridge, where what it does is it helps you focus more what's going to follow in your analysis, because it's where I want to also hear which part of that policy you feel is most important to criticize, to unpick further in more detail. Other questions?
I tend to use more than one theory.
Yeah.
I will mainly focus on bureaucracy, but I will also plan to use some theory of social class by Karl Marx.
Yeah.
So where in the last part, the critical analysis, should I mix these two theories to my analysis, or first talk about bureaucracy, then talk about social class?
Look, I mean, again, I don't want to be that prescriptive about exactly how you're going to refer to the different theories. What I can say to you, so remember the first thing I said is that you're dealing with an essay as one single product, one single narrative. Don't treat it as a fragmented, just you give me three answers to three questions. So in that sense, what you will present in the first section, how you will structure it, will have to kind of be followed on in your analysis. So if in the first part you say something about the Weberian approach to bureaucracy, maybe something about a focus on street-level bureaucracy, and then maybe you want to say also something about the question of class is still not quite accounted for in street-level bureaucracy, and that's a way to bring the importance of power in. I don't know how you want to do this. I'm just suggesting a way. Then in your analysis, again, the analysis, the only advice I can give you is that avoid that you have an analysis section, the key 2,000-word section, that looks like a sequence of points. So point 1, we can say that about bureaucracy. Point 2, we can say that about street-level bureaucracy. Point 3, this is where we can say in relation to class. I want you to try and think what links that sequence. So if you first do, of course, in your essay planning, you do put points. Okay, I want to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. But think what brings up those points, what links those points together. What is the argument? What is the story that you're telling me there? And so I'm absolutely happy for you to bring whichever theory in doing that, but it needs to be not one theory followed by another. It just needs to be a coherent argument. So it makes sense. So I can see where you start talking about class. Oh no, it makes sense to talk about class because because from what you've been telling me so far, we can't really understand the pressures of those street-level bureaucrats if we don't understand the fact that they belong to a certain class, and that informs that kind of the way they respond to those pressures. So, do you see what I mean? Yeah. From others that haven't asked me questions yet? Don't tell me that you have no other questions and you will have to finish that early. So does that, I take it that you all feel reasonably clear and confident about the task? Yeah, I'm getting a lot of notes, that's good.
Also, I haven't started.
Yeah. No, I understand. Well, and I have to say, do make the most of these next few days, and keep thinking and writing. And if you have any specific questions, the time to ask them by email to me is these next few days by the end of this week. I won't be offering any individual feedback after that, unless there is a case of a big, confusion that I'm not going to entirely leave you out on your own. But for the sake of fairness to all, this is where I draw the line. So the end of this week will be your chance to get to me any more specific questions that you might have.
May I send you my introduction part for you by email, and you can keep some feedback?
No. But if there is an idea, or if there is, if you want to check with me, so in the next few days what I can do is, if you specifically, you're looking at cultural capital and a specific way to look at migration in China, and it's a point that you want to make, and you want to, you're unsure, is this the right direction, does that make sense? I can look at it, yeah, that's the sort of thing I can help you with, but I won't read the text if you send me a long text.
In your feedback about my outline, because I want to compare the economic approach of Marxist and also the cultural reproduction from Bourdieu.
Yeah.
And you told me that I also need to talk about revolution from Marxism.
No, I didn't say don't. I didn't say you have to talk about revolution.
Okay, so it's just a session.
I said no. Okay, so this is, maybe I can make a couple of points on this. So. So with regards to, okay, the context in which I said, maybe if you're considering talking about class, and if you're talking about the Marxist approach to class, then I think there's something there about how you will decide what are the important aspects of a response to a problem on which to focus, and what are, I want you to think, especially as you come to your conclusions, what are the so what questions? Ultimately, how can we assess whether a response to global inequality, for instance, or to gender inequality, or to another big problem, how can we assess whether it's appropriate or not? And here I want to emphasize that what you should do is not, I don't want you to assess its feasibility, strictly speaking, on the basis of evidence. That's not what the task is. The task is more to assess is how desirable that response is, how appropriate according to what you think is important it is. And so maybe what I was doing there, and also according to the perspective of the theorists I've used, what does it mean for a policy to be good, ultimately, for a response to be appropriate, good, desirable? So if you're using class and Marx, it would seem to me that one of your criteria should be what kind of radical change does it bring forward. So in a way, your choice of theories is very relevant to what kind of assessment you make. Because, if you work with Durkheim, for Durkheim has a specific way of thinking about, what makes a society functioning and operate in a way that is socially cohesive, etc. If you're talking with Marx, it's a completely different vision. So I think it would be, I'm not saying this is a must do, but it would be useful, I think, for you to think, especially as you come to the end of your essay, the so what, where does that leave us, about those perspectives on those broader questions that your key theorists have sort of espoused. And maybe the revolution reference to answer it was a question. Yes, for Marx, ultimately, there's no solution to global inequality unless the global proletariat, unless the global working class unite together and abolish the exploitation of global capital. So, you know, I'm happy for you to suggest that this is a way forward, for instance, but it doesn't mean that this is what I'm expecting from you, right? It can be a more nuanced argument. So what kind of ways, in what kind of ways we can build a global class solidarity today, you know? And then again, speaking of the conclusion, that's important because this is also, you know, I said to you, I want to hear your own voice, I want to hear, and which it will be obvious to me, your voice, through your choice of debates and your choice of aspects of the problem to focus on. But do use your last few lines of your conclusion in the essay to say something about, where you stand in all this. And this doesn't have to be referenced to specific texts. Yeah.
I just want to ask a question about the use of sources.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
So in some of your feedback on the sort of one-page, thanks for that, by the way, really good.
Yeah.
You mentioned I need to kind of critically back up a lot more of what the argument I'm saying. That's absolutely fine. We'll do that, and we'll take sort of more academic text.
And of course, that was a plan, so I didn't expect to see all the references there. Yeah.
But I also am quite keen to use the hip hop music itself as like a source, as a sort of scholarly source, because I think one of the things that's interesting about this topic is these arguments aren't really that new.
No.
They've been made in the music for decades and decades. It's just that and they're starting to transition over now into sort of the academic world. But I think when it's being said by the artist, why not reference that rather than?
I understand. So I'll try to answer that. I mean, it's an interesting one. What I would say is that. So I think there's a place in your essay for representing, giving us a taste of what the subjects of your analysis, what they bring into that debate about what cultural capital is, and illustrate, use some sources from those people to illustrate as illustrations. When I said you need to back up your arguments with theoretical sources, I mean that the task of your essay isn't to, it's about the balance, right? So I'm wary of, it can be tempting to slip into an argument that, with very good intentions, that fleshes out a lot with a lot of empirics, with a lot of the arguments you made, with a lot of references to media reports, to in your case to artists, hip hop artists themselves, and although there is a space for that, it should be in a kind of auxiliary, supportive function. Because I'm interested to hear. I know the task is to tell me something about so because you link it to the violence control
Of the policing policies.
Yeah. So it should be clear in what you're writing that ultimately you want to say something about those big issues that such an approach is missing, is neglecting, even intentionally or even exacerbating. And I'm not sure, I'm not doing a great job at describing this, but I think that the focus should be on the theoretical argument. And because it's an interesting task in what you're doing, and it's about calling for maybe expanding notions of what cultural is and how it works, I wanted to urge you to look at what counter arguments you can, in terms of theory arguments, that you can make that point.
Yeah.
And of course link it, it's important to make that point because there are those artists that they themselves, like raise those questions. But I just don't want to read an essay about, the London hip hop scene, the minute details of how they, engage with those issues. And there are kind of, I said, so Dan, who I mentioned, I don't know if you. So he's not an academic, but he makes some very nuanced arguments. So, I think it would be an acceptable source, not your sole source, but it's a nice bridge between the world of the empirics, if you like, and some analysis. Other questions? It's nice when we're a small group and having those discussions, isn't it? You're very quiet though today. A lot to reflect on. Anyone that hasn't asked me something yet? Yeah.
I'm looking into class theory, and also I'm interested with this modern world system theory, and
Yeah, I remember.
yeah, and I chose the text, the first policy text about the global inequality and migration, international migration issue.
Yeah.
And then would it be appropriate to bring also like country examples into that, like on top of the policy text itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so again, as I said to your classmate here, I really don't mind where you go with your analysis in terms of context. So what is important is to justify why you do that. So in other words, you can focus more on the prevalence of a certain issue or migration in a specific country, like in Mongolia, but you need to tell me why you think it's important, what part of that debate that the authors have raised, what part of that argument would be useful to focus on, and that justifies your selection of a specific context to ground your discussion on, right? So it might be, I don't know, I was saying, I don't know the specifics of the country context that you want to talk about, but let's say that, I was writing about this and I've been interested in the ways in which Southern European countries are dealing with the question of migration, because they really are urgently faced with that question. Do we have a more firm border approach to the problem, or do we focus on internal migration issues, integration, assimilation, and so on? And because this is a debate I want to focus in my analysis, I will situate it in that context of Southern European countries. But you tell me what the reason is. It's not just random. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Anyone else that hasn't asked me anything yet? In this table here, I haven't had a question. You don't have to ask me, but I just want to make sure I give you the opportunity to do so. I'm hoping that what I've said so far is helpful for everyone. But if there's anything more specific. No? Okay. So anyone now, even those of you that have asked me several questions, is there anything more that I can help with? Okay, in that case, I'm going to leave things here and wish you best of luck, and take the next few days, keep thinking, maybe write down a few points, try out a few ideas, a few links. Think, as I said, of your essay as one essay. Think of how to make links across, a few lines of introduction, a few lines of conclusion, the way you fit, the way you sort of bring together that theory debate that prepares me on what is going to follow in your analysis. Think of those questions. And then try in your analysis what I said. Think of, okay, what is it that you want to say? Ultimately, what is your issue with that response? What really fundamentally does it leave you unsatisfied or angry about? I don't know. What is it? And I think that should guide the way you put together, you group together your points in your analysis. Okay? All right. Well, thanks very much. And yeah, as I said, happy to take any more questions in the next few days via email. And good luck and happy Easter break as well. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. I think that's a good point, but it's not just that. So, because you're saying so the economic factors are important, but they're not the only ones. So there are what you call social inequalities that we need to consider. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
To understand the reproduction of that. Yeah. Profoundly, yeah, I think that's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. But the issue here is not to say that we have on the one hand the economic inequality and on the other hand the other types of inequalities, that they are linked together. Exactly. Yeah. And this is what will help us help us make that point as well, right?
Systematic 一点不会，这是啥时候教啊？
It builds on it. Yeah, yeah. It's a way of
这是最后的，是不是说没听过？
unpacking more the social
我这
aspect,
不能
the
开，我都不
cultural
能开
aspect.
始。
It's a way of
1号
showing
不是还要教那个？
how in modern
好像
society
说艾滋
how
病
economic
其实
inequalities
你不
work
在
in practice. It's not just through
你
the
最好
economic
是我
interests. It's through all these other ways.
没看好吗？
You can claim that. You can claim that. Yeah.
但算是要是一个
No worries. No, you're doing well. I mean, I remember your post and you have some good
我感
arguments
觉
there.
Mark
So.
那个文章就是你们尽量在3月底或者尽快。我觉得是。
All right. See you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Was it?
比例好。
有什么新进展吗？
对啊，好长。
我也是，我最近在疯狂赶那个地铁的 proposal，那不是月底要交吗？然后我在疯狂地赶那个 literature review 什么的。
他不是说尽快吗？
是尽快，然后我就觉得早点写完早点好玩的。
是尽快，我就放弃了。是尽快，是尽快。
哎，但是我跟你讲，就是温姐开始开会的话，我昨天晚上去参加，就是那个他们那个做的那个 reading group，然后昨天晚上讲的是那个whether education is social justice
You should aim to complete by the end of March or as soon as possible. 就是这个意思，就你整不出来也没招。
因为他虽然主要是讲 private education，就是有什么不好，因为像英国这边 private education
什么时候下一个 workshop？
但其实就
啥下一个啊？不是今天了。你说这个课对 workshop 这是 DT 的啊，下学期吧。4月25号，我感觉好像是刚开学就那啥。行。
然后正好又是英国的课程，
在哪打你？昨天刚飞 supervisor。
还挺好的。
还没约见面呢。你第一天约酒吧就在你打发的，你没有？
我把我的 proposal 发给他，
发在。
对，我就说这个是我 proposal， 然后什么就是说那个写的什么，就是一个是我们可以约一个见面，一个是我自己 proposal， 就是一个是我自己可以跟我讲。
然后你就见了。
然后他就喊我写 literature review， 然后我就没给他。你要去健身吗？
啊？
你要去健身吗？
不去，我下午约 tutorial， 然后你又不去，我反正自己一个人去。
约了什么 tutorial？
personal tutor。他3周前跟我说要见面，然后我也没时间，他也没时间，就拖到了明天。
可以。
是 supervisor 还是 personal tutor？ 他有啥可 tutor 的？
不知道，他就说 it's time to catch up with you， 然后就要见他，然后我就放。
是时候见一面了。
对，是的。我不知道，我觉得现在跟 personal tutor
没啥好说的。
每次都
他就问问你生活有没有什么困扰。
对，我每次去之前都要想半天，我有什么问题，想好了。
最近感觉肾有点虚。
我上次我超想睡觉，就这样子聊了1次。
哦，真的吗？哎，你是 Carol 吗？
不是。
傻屌啊！
真的帅吗？
关键是你这个手到了。
我就以我早晨起床起不来这么一个理由跟他聊的，
不
然我真的没话可以说。
那这个也确实是没啥好聊的聊。
你们最近有见过 personal tutor 吗？
我们那个有一个集体见过一次。
哦，集体见真好，我
对
好尴尬，我都不知道跟他说啥。我和他聊一聊去年我 EPP 为什么得 B 是吗？
心碎。你 systematic 写了吗？肯定写了。我根本无法开始，我觉得这学期课我也没有听懂过，我也不知道他是干啥。然后我觉得那个 systematic review 根本没有中文相关的东西，我连重新学习都学习不了。那这样查系统评价全都是学医的。
他每周 reading 嘛。
我上周一直在吃饭。
我去看看中文了不行。没有。
我觉得你妈来了之后长得更胖了，你的脸更圆了。
就是怎么说还行。
我靠，有她的孩子真是。
你这干啥？
我更圆了。
啊？脸更圆了。
你就穿羽绒服，4月了。万物复苏了，你能放过你的羽绒服吧？啊，万物复苏了。
你妈天天给你做啥吃呢？
做啥吃啊？快听听。也没做啥，所以怎么都还不。真的啊？为啥呀？是跟这块儿的锅有点水土不服。
你妈来尝试一下我的糖醋排骨。
那你妈待多久啊？那你俩要出去玩吗？
要。我都是行了，还没定。
那我靠，那还有什么说啊？都是你妈不跟我去美国。
那我妈可能不一个人去的。
为啥？
就我知道，我可能在5月3号之前把它写完，然后给你。
那我逼迫你，你肯定还是可以写完的。
这件事情已经没有什么结果。
是的，都是你。妈说你每天都睡9个小时，为什么你还这么？
是，我也很疑惑，妈妈，我也很疑惑。
我觉得你的气色还好，没有我想的那么憔悴啊。是吗？一眼袋都没有。真的吗？你妈来了还是稍微好一点的。
是吗？我吃的比以前少，还比以前晚。
可是你吃的比以前好啊，吃的也比以前规律啊。生活充满节奏感。
是我睡了。太可怕了！我觉得那个是我现在都回想起来，睡觉的耳边这一段。是那个跑男那个。
他也告我，你跟我不见面，然后他的邮件。
你找找。
好，我给你发一下。这个什么 Kiko？ 哎，你这些你都留这个邮箱，那你这个邮箱不是废了？哎，
我老留广告了。
对呀、那我都没留，我都留 QQ 邮箱，这都留。我的那个啥，我就是一片净土，你知道吗？
我这就是可热闹了。 老多那种打发的，怎么看积木啊？不会呀。
干嘛了？
就是我们俩发了老多邮件了，我不知道
怎么看你俩的那个通话记录？
对。哎，这样，今天就是这样，就不是。
1254，你怎么闹的？
我咋整？我崩溃了。
我的那个老师是研究什么 citizenship 的啥玩意儿
citizenship
公民提名啊什么？哎，那你政治社会学呀？那啥嘛，没学过吗？
这是纲法。不行，这咋没有记录？
他让你去上 workshop 呀？难过。
你说他那 proposal 语法错误全给我指出来，一点不记得我给我搞了。
其实那个不太那啥。
对呀，他就是你这个语法问题给我改了，
那个以后再说啊，就是我不能找个，我找 proofreading 就都给我改了。你算乙方吗？我不会。你知道乙方最分是几分？
搞试半天，终于跟他导师主要写啥了？
我那会儿中文本啥嘎的英文，原来也不会讲这个英文。
哎，你懂？别说这个。
我不知道他在讲什么，他不知道我在讲什么的状态中。
你看那个 Office 什么 Outlook，你按上面那块重新，我们进入主页。3。
你都已经写 proposal 了？
不是，就是最前。
社工互换化。
就是我的 QQ 邮箱。
我就知道外面还
没有那么久以前，1月份的时候
秒回，然后我就让我的压力很大，因为他每次回了我之后抛过来一堆问题，然后我就在改，怕老给他回过去。
那就是语法问题，看看我改。
哇，这么多！
我们俩聊，我老是想。
1月29你就联系了，我是3月29。快复制给我。
你是打，真是
太长了。上个微信，上个。那我现在Word里打完编辑，然后就修日色。
就这么长。
那我那个 Outline 不好意思发你。
这原来很硬，给我深深穿软了。
你给。
就是我上周去滑雪山，深深的把它就是很到位的，在雪里浸泡。对。
Dear。
我还从那个雪坡上。
DEAR。你要吃啥？你先吃。先吃。
我刚传过过7万的，是我10点钟起的，真的差不多。15起。
不知道啥时候先吃饭。
回国。
那不行。
回国。那不行。咋回事？非要请我吃饭，有点奢侈品。
拉倒吧，拉倒吧，虚伪。
然后就先走正常路下来，然后最后就是它有一条径道，是可以直接到大门的，然后那边有一个铁栏杆，要不然的话就是这样。
你说是你给我复制过来更好呢。
打练练再查。
反正有钱人
我还翻那个墙，翻多少墙我还卡住了。然后我这边先确认清了，然后我再啪再翻过去，然后再去翻过去，然后
我跟你说，就赖你这电脑太新了，有点滑。
那我还没有那啥，哎，你也没整那个啥，
有点手感。
我把我那给你，我那个用不了，好像不一样大。这太大了，你这是多大屏啊？
有点手感。
你这15。我看出来了，做天天做，都得转头让人看。Program 对吗？
对，
我们是 Program 吗？
是。
我说你想干啥咱干啥去，你别问我要不要学习。我最近发现一个吃那个甜点的。
今天吗？
啊，你要是
你早说，我怎么不吃饭？
这是我邀请太晚了，邀请太晚了。
我是今天那个中午10点多的时候，嘉欣给我发，
我又绷不住，我腰又不好，然后我就好成贼呀，
干啥？
然后就脑我就一屁股坐然后转了一下手，
才想起来我上，刚从床上爬起来。
那你不行啊，那你这态度就不是特别端正。
刚从床上爬起来，
那你这态度不是特别端正啊，我跟你说。
你看那个婆婆，她都已经给我改4遍了，每一遍都是就是无法做，都可定了。
不要那个。
你怎么样？然后说，然后他给我发了什么Academic的信息，说让我去参加一下。
你去了吗？你看我总去，犯不着你。但是我也没还去，我没去，去了3会儿。现在还有，但是有一个挺好的，最近有一个什么 Demonstrate Your Voice 那个课，长得高傲的老师。
你去哪天你叫我？
反正
我就
下，
反正就不想去。
反正下周就上。May you do it May you have a good day。也是祝愿能放开头吗？
差不多嘛，就是。
那你老师都让上 student 是上 academic center 了，啊？
这样好吗？这样我不见潮了。
哎呀妈呀！
就是再塞给我几件，因为觉得不能买太多进去，能让我陪他一起去。不见潮了。
不行，你看你这人就是好在哪儿？抄完了你告诉我。哎呀妈，老师看你这名儿不眼晕呢。
因为有的外国人不会发那个 H 打头的那个音，
不知道这啥怎么念。这老师看你不眼晕嘞，哎呀，我都眼晕，我跟你说，你笑死我了。我现在想想，妈呀，这还都得大写，我说这谁写这样事儿？
你这两天笑，你这样我都不见潮了。
我待会儿又来做，
这我俩就来回发邮件。
我给你看。
然后这个之后还另起了好多，说你知道那个什么，得他给我发说你知道得写那个 essay form 吗？然后你得发给我签字，你知道吗？我说我知道。
我上课录的音，现在还录着忘了，把大家说话全录进去，这多不好。